Think of a card. Think of a card. Any card. Thought of a card? Is that your card? Nailed it. Here's some wrestling news. A top WWE superstar could be leaving the company soon. WWE are reportedly not testing their performers during the pandemic. And the return of a WWE TV show has been confirmed. Find out what and when in a little bit. It's been a rough old week for Rey Mysterio, hasn't it? First he was thrown off a roof. Thankfully, he landed on the much safer secondary roof and is absolutely fine. And he then went on to Monday Night Raw feeling great about himself, having only suffered one fall onto a secondary roof, and ended up getting his eye gouged out by Seth Rollins in very dramatic style. Isn't it weird how having your eye gouged was far more damaging career-wise than being thrown off a building? Wrestling! The reason that Rey Mysterio has been taken off of our TV screens could be due to the fact that he hasn't re-signed with the company yet, and potentially could be on the way out as well. The two sides have been going back and forth for a new deal, so we understand this morning. Nothing has been set in stone yet. A few notes from Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer regarding this. Dave says one of the key things for Rey Mysterio right now is the future of his son. There is the idea not to do anything to upset WWE because it could negatively affect his son's career. We've seen a lot of stuff with Dominic and Rey over the last few months, and there was talk here on Cultaholic and other places a while ago that it could be Dominic that ends up retiring Rey Mysterio and taking on the mantle and continuing forward. So I think Rey, even if Rey doesn't stick around, he certainly wants to keep his son's WWE career on the right track. Dave goes on. He says he also has a very high contract with WWE because they very badly didn't want him working for New Japan, which he had started doing before he signed. So he's on a lot of money to stay in WWE at the moment, and obviously with everything going on, there's no pay increases and such for wrestlers and talent and staff right now. Everything's on a bit of a pay freeze, so they're at loggerheads regarding that. Rey's been with WWE on and off since 2002. Whenever he's been away from the company, he's made an impact in places where he has gone. In particular, when he main evented All Out, the show that would go on to launch All Elite Wrestling. So take a shot if you've already heard rumours about Rey Mysterio jumping to AEW. We've not heard anything like that at all, just so you know. But take a shot if you've seen the Cody Cupping gif already. That's not far away. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Rey Mysterio possibly could be wrapping up his time in WWE sooner rather than later. A rather concerning quote from Wrestling Observer Radio sheds a little bit of light on the mindset of Vince McMahon right now. We've told some bizarre stories about Vince over the last couple of weeks. He took a dive during the WrestleMania rehearsals to help a frightened Gronk out. He's been apparently in a bit of a don't give an F mode backstage, but it runs a bit deeper than that. This comes from Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer Radio show. Dave says WWE has still yet to do, as far as I know, according to Dave, one test so far regarding the pandemic. As it was explained to me, Vince McMahon is not receptive to the outside world. He finds what's going on in the outside world to be an annoyance because it's getting in the way of his vision. He's got a vision, and all these people are freaking getting in his way of what he wants to do by not letting him run whatever. The whole global pandemic isn't really something that Vince McMahon's enjoying, but for a different reason to us. It's not the fact that it's something dangerous that's out there in the world, and obviously there'll be conspiracy theorists in the comments saying otherwise. Adjust your tinfoil hats accordingly. But it's more the fact that it's just getting in the way of what Vince wants to do, and he's just frustrated by it. Vince has got a couple of headaches to combat at the moment, and I think before we move on to the next story, I think that quote at the start might be something that gets highlighted in days and weeks to come, where WWE has yet to do, as far as I know, according to Dave Meltzer, one test so far during the pandemic. Definitely something possibly something to keep an eye on with that one. The other headache to Vince McMahon at the moment comes in the form of a lawsuit worth $23 million. Oliver Luck, the former XFL CEO and commissioner, is suing Vince McMahon for that amount for wrongful dismissal. Luck was fired from his role as CEO and commissioner of the XFL mere days before the XFL folded. As such, he didn't get his contractual payout. We have an update on this. The paper's written up by McDevitt and K&L Gates in Pittsburgh. Sorry, McDevitt of K&L Gates in Pittsburgh state that Vince McMahon has claimed that Luck was fired for neglecting his job in the early days of the pandemic, for personal use of a company iPhone, and signing Antonio Callaway. Now, the name Antonio Callaway is one of the major sticking points as to why Vince fired Luck. So Vince specified that he didn't want players in the XFL that had any kind of checkered past or any legal issues historically. Callaway was signed to the XFL despite being suspended in 2017 on third-degree felony and credit card fraud charges. So this goes against the agreement made by Vince McMahon and Luck. So consequently, that was part of the reason that led to his firing. Whilst Vince McMahon's lawyers did admit that McMahon has signed Luck to a personal guaranteed contract no matter what happened with the league, meaning he would get paid out if the XFL folded, which it did. Because of these violations in his contract, they fired him just a few days before. The trial continues on that one. The process continues on that one. When we know more about it, you will know more about it too. Is Ohio Valley about to leave Ohio Valley? Any old school wrestling fans will recognize the logo there. Ohio Valley Wrestling is the place that gave birth to guys like John Cena and Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton and Shelton Benjamin. It was the development system for WWE long before NXT was even a glint in Triple H's eye. And they've been running shows. They started running weekly shows online up until the pandemic, and then they were forced to close because where OVW do all their stuff, there's a stay-at-home order, so they can't do anything. Alan Sarvin, who you and I know as Al Snow, has said if the ban is not lifted, then he will look to take OVW to Destin, Florida. And of course, when it comes to Florida, to paraphrase Dave Bautista that time, wrestling isn't just encouraged, it's allowed. Nice one, Dave. Interesting, the idea of OVW moving to Florida. Obviously, NXT comes out of Orlando, Florida. So the idea of OVW and NXT being in the same state, it's a bit like an ex moving into the same town as you. Bit weird. Rusev Machka. Not my words, the words of Rusev spotting two Vauxhall Astras. Rusev back in the news, breaking his silence since being let go from WWE. We'll talk about what Rusev's been doing online in just a second, but he's been very much a point of conversation with the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. He was chatting in an interview for Post Wrestling. Nick was glowing about Rusev, saying the following: "You won't find a bigger Rusev fan than me. I remember pretty much from the beginning I would text Dave Lagana all the time, 'God, Rusev is money,' and he'd be like, 'I know.' He's an unbelievable athlete. He can work, charisma, the whole thing is ready to go. If I were AEW and I had the resources to pay for it, I think he would probably be top of my list. I think he would probably end up at WWE, but I'm not sure how confident I'll be that he'll be on the open market for very long. But if we could get him at the NWA, even for a short period run, it would be huge." Nick Aldis keen to get Rusev into NWA, and you know what? Rusev would fit really well in that old school wrestling environment. I genuinely believe that that's a nice little fit for him, even for just a short amount of time. Rusev's broken his silence on Twitter. He was retweeting and commenting on a lot of fans who've been getting in touch. We had a tweet from someone saying, "Thank you for all the great memories in WWE." Rusev replied with, "I ain't dead, my man, I'm just starting." Obviously, people asking about where he's going to be next, what he's going to do next, going back and forth. He was referred to by one person as the Bulgarian Brute, which is, of course, his nickname in WWE, and he responded to that by saying, "That's a WWE name, and I won't use." So expect something new from Rusev once he gets up and running. Also, as well as being on Twitter, he jumped onto Twitch for a bit, and he played Darksiders Genesis. If you're a fan of Darksiders Genesis, you can go watch Rusev playing it now and have a lovely day. Bobby Lashley, but not Bobby Lashley, cause I can turn it round, cause there's more that I can do. Now this is war, now this is war. Now this is war, this is what? 205 Live, of course. It's back tonight. For the last couple of weeks, they've been doing like a compilation episodes of 205 guys looking at some of their favourite ever episodes and moments from 205 Live. I can confirm that the tapings for Raw, SmackDown and NXT this past week, they got in a couple of weeks worth of 205 Live as well. So 205 Live is back tonight. Alright, I can hear you saying it now. Let's all say it together. 1, 2, 3. I didn't know it had gone! Hey! Oh, 205 Live, are you dead or not? Yeah, it's just been off for a couple of weeks. And it says something, doesn't it, about how the 205 Live is a show built all around the Cruiserweight Championship, a belt that is now being defended on NXT, but the tournament to crown an interim champion, all of that is happening on NXT and not on 205 Live. A tumultuous time for 205, isn't it? Like the last 9 months, I think we've been sort of trying to call the time of death of 205 Live, but it keeps on trucking. And you know what? In these uncertain times, okay, where everything is a little bit skew-if, and we're now reaching like 8, maybe 9 weeks, for some people even more, into lockdown, where all the things are shut, life as we know it is different. You know what? You know what? If 205 Live can keep on going despite a lack of interest, despite a lack of time, despite a lack of audience, despite a lack of attention, if 205 Live can keep going, you know what? So can you. So can you. You are my 205 Live. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. Love you. Bye.